Hi and welcome to this mini drawing course. In this mini drawing course we will draw this beautiful dog eye. It's a blue dog eye with different blue shades in there. You can see a dark pupil and a brilliant highlight here. We will draw that dog eye and then all the long fur around. The size is 10 to 10 centimeters or 3.9 to 3.9 inch. So you can see here the printout. I always print my reference photo in the size I need it, and then I cut that and then I can place it here below or on the right side or somewhere else, and then I always can compare. I also open my reference photo on the computer screen or on the mobile phone or on a tablet. And here I have prepared pastel mat. It's Clairefontaine pastel mat in color brown. So I highly recommend to use a high quality pastel paper like this pastel mat from Clairefontaine. It's a artistic paper produced for drawing with pastels. It has a special surface that's a bit velvety, so it's very smooth, not like sandpaper, and I really love it for drawing realistic animal portraits. It allows lots of layers. So if possible, use pastel mat paper for your drawing because you will get much better results and you will be much more satisfied then afterwards with your result. Okay, so pastel mat paper in size 10 to 10 centimeters, 3.9 inch. I have chosen color brown. You can also choose color dark brown, sand, light gray, or any color else you would like to use. Okay, then colors I have chosen are 101 white from the Pit Faber-Castell, 132 light flesh, 189 it's cinnamon, 283 burnt sienna, 187 it's burnt ochre, 188 sanguine, then a dark brown, 177 walnut brown, 199 black, then a gray, a middle gray, 273 the warm gray 4. And then for the eye we need some blues. I have here a lighter blue, 140. It's the light ultramarine, then 149. It's the bluish turquoise, 143. It's called cobalt blue, and then 151. It's called Helio Blue Reddish. And then I will use an ivory. I have here the ivory from the Carputellos Stabilo 105. The number of the Pit ivory is 103. Of course, you can use that too. Okay, so you can find all the colors on the material list I have included. And then let's start. Let's start drawing the outlines. So let's sketch in all the outlines. There are different methods how you can do that. Either you do it freehand, so then just draw all the outlines here on your paper freehand, comparing the distances where the eye should be. Then it's a good method to train your eyes and to practice from time to time. then you can use tracing paper. So place a tracing paper here on the drawing paper, put the printout on top of it, and then draw along the outlines here and just trace the outlines onto your paper. That's also possible. Or add some pigment of soft pastel sticks on the back side of your printout. If you have soft pastels, add here a layer on the back side and then place it on your paper and draw over the outlines. That's possible too. What I will show you here is using helping lines or the grid method. So we will draw here helping lines on the edges of the eye here, so left and right from the dog's eye, and also above and below. And so we frame that eye with helping lines, and then we have a good orientation, and then we will scratch in. First we will transfer the lines to the paper, and then we will add and sketch in all details we need. So I use a ruler and bring in here, draw some helping lines. So the first helping line I make here 3 centimeters from the bottom upwards. And then I measure how big is the eye. Okay, we have again 3 centimeters, so that's a good distance. I choose again 3 centimeters then for the next line. And place here 3 centimeters above the next line. I do these lines with a graphite pencil on the reference photo. And then place one helping line here on the left side of the dog eye. So I just choose here that part where the eye corner here ends. And let's draw here one line in the 90-degree angle. Okay, and then let's measure where should we place the next one. So either we choose 3 centimeters, but better is 3.5 because there is also the inner eye corner. So make a next line here after 3.5 centimeters. And draw that line then. Okay, then let's think about, can we use or do we need more helping lines? But I think that's enough. Perhaps we make here a cross in this part where the eye is. So let's do that. Then it's a bit easier to bring in details in the iris and in the eye here. So let's make one line in the middle, 1.5 centimeters, bringing in here one line, and also do the same here we have. So let's say after 2 centimeters from the left to the right, here 2 centimeters, and make that line here. Then we have here some nice helping lines inside the eyeball too. Okay, great. Then let's transfer that helping lines on our paper. The easiest way is to do that in this way, that you lay this printout over your paper, so the reference photo over your paper. And just mark here where the lines go over the edges, because we will draw the portrait over the whole paper. So we will draw this eye and all the things over the whole paper. So it's possible that you just mark here where the lines should be. Just make here these little strokes, and then you don't have to measure here a lot. It's easier than you you go over it and measure all the distances and bring in then the helping lines. Of course, you can measure. Yes, we had here. Let's measure. Oh, these were 4 centimeters and 3 millimeters, and then place the line and 3 centimeters from the bottom. Of course, you can do that here too, but it should be okay when we have just marked where the lines are on the reference photo. And then draw these lines. I take here a white pastel pencil that the lines here are visible for you on the camera. You can use another color too, like light flesh, for example. So I would use a lighter color here in this case, because we have lots of light fur then to draw and lighter colors. Then it is better to use a lighter color for your lines, for the sketch. If you have a black animal, then you can use black and it's better to use black for drawing the outlines. And here the white is totally fine. Okay, so then we have here the helping lines. Let's also add here these we have here in that part where the eye should be. Here is one in the middle, and then the next, let's draw the next. Here we had 2 centimeters from the left side to the right, then draw the next line. Okay, and so that's the method I use most times. So little studies, I do freehand to train the eye, but for commissions most times I use such helping lines or even smaller lines when I need them. Okay, then let's start drawing the outlines. Let's sketch in the eye. So I would say here, let's start with the black. I have here 199 from the Pit Faber-Castell. So let's start sketching in the outline of our dog eye. Let's do that with black, because here the eye lids and the lines are black too. Always measure with the eye the distances. So I would say here, let's go 2 centimeters here downwards, and then let's sketch in here the shape of our eyeball. Here it's a bit slanted and it's going downwards. So draw all the details in you can see on your reference photo. Here some millimeters upwards, so I would say 2. And then draw this eyelid here upwards. Here the eye corner is going a bit to the right. And then we have here on the left side these flesh-colored eyelid here. Let's draw that in. Always compare with your reference photo. What do you see? How long, how big are the distances here? So here we have these eyelashes. Here we can mark where then the shadow should be here. This is all a bit black then. Then let's also here are then the hairs starting, and we have here so darker sections. Also sketch these darker parts in, so that we have a good orientation then. So here too, here are also some black, longer shadow parts. Just sketch them in a bit here. We just need to know where all these dark parts then should be. Then let's sketch in the pupil. So here let's draw in the black pupil. She is round. So draw here a little circle. Yes, and then bring in that highlight here. So drawing the outline of that highlight. What I love to do is to use a second color in the sketch and just sketch in a bit of contrast and bring in lighter parts with white and the darkest parts with darker colors. So then let's draw here over this eyeball once more, make the outlines really round, and yes, here we have then so little fine strokes. We will do that and then afterwards with blue, dark blue, just sketch that in where these details then are. Okay, so I think that's enough for the eye, and then let's sketch in a bit the fur around. Here I use a bit of the black too for the black areas. So we have here darker sections, and then always follow the direction of the fur. So here are the hairs growing upwards. Draw them upwards and then downwards. Follow the direction of the fur. And here, let's bring in here these all these details. Here below it's very dark, it's really black. Let's draw that black part in here. And then here too, sketch in where this fur is going, the fur direction, here downwards. Then let's use the light flash a bit and just sketch in here where this flesh colored fur is going. Let's sketch in every details we need. So here the hairs on the right side, following the direction of the fur. So have a good look to the reference photo and just draw in, sketch in all these details. So the more details you bring in your sketch, in your first line drawing, the easier you have it then afterwards. So draw in these hairs, the fur direction, where are the hairs going. So we have here then the head ends here of the dog. So let's measure here the distances and just sketch in here the outline. This one is here going downwards. Some are then changing direction here and going a bit to the right side here. I also love to use a third color in the sketch and just use white here and work a bit with white, so it gives me a better overview. So if you would like, you can do that too. Choose different colors here in your sketch, and then yes, you have it easier, you have a better overview then afterwards for your drawing. Here too, let's bring in here with white all the lighter parts. Here above it's also bright, here the fur. Just sketch in here white lines that are going here to the right side and then a bit downwards here. Just mapping in here this first layer. So the sketch, these are just lines here at this stage. Yes, and then let's use here a brown and sketch in. We have here these eyelashes here. Let's sketch them into a bit, these brown lines that are going here upwards. the eyebrows here, the part above the blue eye. Just sketch that in here. It should be brown. This part here is brown. Let us sketch that in, and then we have a good orientation where then all the details should be. Here it's also brown here below. Let's sketch in here a bit, and the same here downwards. Let's sketch in here the brown a bit. Here it's more brownish here. Okay. Yes, I think. So perhaps let's sketch in here a bit of these blurry background things here. But I think that's enough for our sketch, for our outlines. So we have added lots of details, and then let's start working on the blue eyes. So now it can be fun. Let's go. So first of all, I would say let's start with the black 199 from the Pitt. I work here with the Pitt pastel pencils from Faber-Castell. I really love them because they are a bit harder. They have a harder lead, and so they have a bit more binder in the lead, and the pigments, they are very hard, and I can achieve lots of fine lines with the Pitts. I also love the Carputellos. They are a little bit softer, the Carputellos from Stabilo. These ones, I work with them too. If you have them, of course you can work with them too, but they are a little bit softer, but also very good pastel pencils. So use a black pastel pencil and plot in the pigment here on the pupil. The first step is here drawing the pupil, mapping in here pastel pigment. I work with some middle pressure here because I want that the pupil is really black. Most times I always recommend to draw with very low pressure, but when you want to fill up here bigger areas where you don't have to add lots of layers like the pupil, then it can be useful to use a bit more pressure. So go over that area, and then I push the pigment into the paper. Blend it a bit with a paper stamp, and then let's draw the outlines. So here it's black around the eye here. Let's draw the outline with the black. So another pencil that I can highly recommend is the Charcoal Heart from Pitt Faber-Castell. It's a charcoal, a black charcoal, and you can create a deeper black with it. So if you can use this one if you have. If you don't have, you can work with your black pastel pencils, of course. But this black charcoal pencil is a tip from me that you can use. It's possible then to create a very deep black. Let's then draw along the eyelids. I use here the black charcoal. You can of course use your black pastel pencil too. Draw along the outlines. Go over the same outline for several times and map in a bit of the black pigment. Here on the left side it's darker, there is a shadow part. Here we can plot in more pastel pigment. Yes, and also here drawing along that outline here. Here the dog eye has such a skin colored part. Draw around that with the black. And also bring in, map in here black pigment. Here the charcoal pigment or your pastel pigment in that black area here in the eye corner. and then use your fingers for blending or use a paper stamp for blending. These paper stamps are really helpful tools. They are made of paper, and you can use them for blending, for pushing the pigments into the paper. So let's speak a little bit about the blending process that's so important in your animal portraits. So first, let's speak a bit about the pastel matte paper. You can imagine this paper has little valleys and mountains, and between these valleys and mountains there is a space between, and with which layer of pastel pigment that you apply to the paper, you fill up these spaces with pigment. And then the more layers you add, then at some point these little spaces will be filled up with pastel pigment, and there is no space between. So no valleys and mountains anymore, and then the paper is saturated. And then you cannot draw lines over it anymore. All your lines will start to smear and smudge, and it's not possible to draw thin, fine lines anymore. That's because it's so important to blend the first layers very well and to use very less pressure so that you don't apply too much pigment, and only apply a thin layer of pastel pigment. Then it's possible to draw in many layers. What we need when we want to create realistic animal portraits. So blend this first black layer. Okay, then I would say we add a bit of a light blue and white here on the highlight. So first use white 101, and I add here on the highlight a bit of the white, map in a white layer, and then let's use a light blue 140 I have here. You can use 435 from the Carbutellos too. This is a pit. And then I map in here a little bit of the blue. You can then start mixing colors. So I go over this white I have added before with the blue, and just go over it in little circles here and mix white and blue. I always teach in my lessons, in my drawing courses, in my membership Animal Art Club, that it's so important to use very low pressure. So go over this part here too with very low pressure, and then you can blend these layers together, create smooth transitions here, and then I push the pigments into the paper so that the pigment is deep in these valleys and is pressed into it. You can also do that with a paper stamp and go over it here with the paper stamp and mix these, push the pigments into the paper, mix, blend the first layer. That's always really important when you work with pastels. And then you can go over with the sharp white again. So make sure your white has a sharp point, and then we can here go over again with white and make this line below very bright and white, and also bringing in little circles some more details here in the highlight, and then use once more the blue and darken down that part here above a bit. Again, work with very low pressure, draw in so little circles. That's really very important, and keep that in mind that you work with very low pressure. Okay, then let's do the same here on the iris, on our eyeball. I would say either you have a very light blue in your pastel pencils range, or you apply first a white layer and then color it light blue. I will do it here with white to show you that process. So map in a layer of white here, a thin layer first, here below the pupil. Here where you can see on the reference photo that it is very bright and brilliant here, light blue. So just map in here a layer with white. Then let's blend that with the finger a bit. Push the pigments again into the paper. And then you can use, of course, a paper stamp too for that blending. And then add a layer with the light blue over it. So go over with a very light hand, use low pressure, and map in a thin layer of blue. And then we have here such a light blue base layer. Then map in a bit more of blue here in the eye corner. It's the 140, the ultramarine light blue from the pit. So bring in here a layer of light blue around the edges here. And here above, let's map in here light blue. I go over it here in circles. The goal is that the paper color disappears, that it don't look gritty, that all the grit disappears and the paper color disappears. Just map in here a first layer with the blue and then blend that first layer with the paper stamp. Going over in little circles. This is our first underpainting, so don't worry, we will add lots of details then to bring our dog eye to life here on paper. It's always really fascinating to see how your animal portrait starts and begins to live. So you bring your portrait to life on your paper, it starts to live. For me, eyes are always the most important thing in an animal portrait, and I always start with the eyes. You know, they say the eyes are the gates to the soul of an animal, and it's so important for me to bring in the character and the personality of the animal in a portrait. And so eyes are really important, and I love to draw eyes. It's really fascinating to draw eyes. Okay, so then let's go over it once more. I would say here with white. Let's add another layer white here on top. Bring in with very low pressure a very thin layer of white. You can go over it here in some little circles or move the pencil upwards and downwards here a bit. Going over that part here, pushing the pigments into the paper then. And then let's use the other blues. So we have darker blues around the pupil here. It's really dark, and we can see here lots of fine lines on the reference photo. So use a darker blue like 151. It's the helio blue reddish, a dark blue, and draw lines to the left side here and then downwards. We can see here so very small lines in the dog eye, or little veins, or whatever these are. Here the darker ones around the pupil, so add some curvy lines. Here on the right side they are shorter. Let them also cross a bit and bring in so dark blue lines. Push the pigment into the paper. I'm going to sharpen that blue, so it's important that you have sharp pastel pencils for drawing fine lines, so that you have a sharp point. So with the sharp point, bring in with very low pressure, fine, thin lines. The important thing is really here to draw with a very low hand and bring in these little fine hairs. Move the pencil here downwards, scratch over the surface very, very gently. And let's draw in here thin, fine little hairs. We also have to darken down that part here above. We can map in here a bit of blue, and also here going over with a thin layer of the helio blue here, and then use, for example, a cotton swab. Use such cotton swabs for blending, going over very gently, and blend these layers. Bring in here a thin layer of the blue. Also around the lower edges here, map in a thin layer of blue. Go over here with blue, and here too, mapping in a bit of blue, and then blend it. Here you can, I would say, I use the paper stamp here and blend it. Also here below along the edges. Go over it in little circles and just mix in a bit of the blue. You can do that with the cotton swab too. Go over and blend the white and the blue. Create here these transitions. Then let's use black. And go over here, over the pupil once more with black, darken down that part above here, bringing in here a darker pastel pigment, bringing in shadow here, and here at the left side below our highlight too, it has to be darker here, mapping in here black pigment. And also draw some black fine lines here over the blue ones, and go once more over our round pupil. Then add again with very low pressure these fine lines, pushing the pigments into the paper, and go over it once more with these fine thin lines with the black too. Use very low pressure, just bringing in more of these details here over the iris. Pushing the pigments into the paper again. Here below we also have, so this part here on the left side, it's darker. We need to darken that down. So let's bring in here gently a thin layer of black. And then blend it here to the right side over the eyeball with the cotton swab. We can also plot in here a bit of gray. Here we have so warm gray light reflections on the eyeball. I would say let's map in here a thin layer of warm gray. 273, it's the warm gray 4. So use a warm middle gray. And plot that in here a bit. The same here in the right corner. Then go over with the cotton swab a bit and blend that. Next step, I want to add another layer with white. Brighten up that part here a bit, so you can see you can really change colors and add different layers. So I go over this part here and want to brighten that up a bit, bringing in a thin layer of white here. I go over it in little circles, pushing the pigments into the paper. Then we have an orange brown, our burnt ochre, 187. Let's go over this left part here with light pressure and add a thin layer of burnt ochre. Just bring and apply a very thin layer. We have here reflections on the left side of the eye, of here, of the hairs around. We can also bring in a bit of brown, 283, the burnt sienna a bit, and go over the left part here, darken that part down, and mix in then black once more, go over it once more here with black, and then blend it. Use a cotton swab and blend it here, create smooth transitions, let the colors fade or mix here so that we have here smooth transitions. Then let's bring another colors of blue. So let's use 143. It's a middle blue, it's called cobalt blue, and let's work a bit with middle blue. So let's go over the eyeball here and add so very fine thin lines here, like so little veins. Let them here go downwards over our lighter part here. Use very, very low pressure and a very light hand for that, so that you can achieve these very fine thin blue lines. So let them go here over this, over the eyeball that we have created before. The same you can do then with white and bring in with white, so white fine lines here. So some highlights or these small strokes. Go between the blue strokes with white and add some white details, little dots, little lines, so that we also have here the whiter details in the eye here too. Let's bring in some blue, some white dots between the blue here everywhere. Then let's use the black once more, always darken down the pupil a bit, and then also bringing in here a bit more of the black over the blue. Play around a bit and add different colors. We can also bring in another blue, 149, the bluish turquoise a bit, and bringing a bit of a turquoise blue here, going over. So mix some different shades of blue, bringing in some lines also here in the corner, going over and plotting in here a bit of the turquoise blue here. So you can really add lots of layers here. Then let's use the 140 once more, the light blue, the ultramarine light blue, and go over here once more with the light blue, adding again some light blue details. Then I would say let's use once more white and bring in here a thin layer of white, a very, very gentle layer. I just want to brighten up that part here once more. Then use a cotton swab and blend this a bit here. Then let's use, I use the charcoal black once more here and darken down the pupil, and also here let's draw once more over our eye here, bringing in here more black along the eyelids, and also here on the left side let's darken down that part. During the drawing process you have dust, black dust or white dust on your portrait, so it can be necessary that you always go over it with black between and darken the black parts down again. Okay, let's use white once more and bringing in here with the white again some highlights on our blue eyeball. And then let's use the dark blue, the 151 once more, Helio blue reddish, and add again some of these lines. Here you can really play around a bit and add these fine thin lines. Let them cross here, let them go together, and also some are going to the left, some are crossing here. Here below we have also a darker line. Let's bring in that with blue and darken that part here below down a bit. Let's map in here black again. So here below, bringing in a bit of black, darken that lower part down here, and then blend it with the paper stamp. Blend it here. Okay. Also this inner eye corner, we can brighten it up here with white a bit. And then here, I would say let's use 189, the cinnamon. It's a orangey pink flesh color. Let's bring that in here, in this fleshy part here of the eye. Go over with the paper stamp, and then use light flesh 132, and bringing here a lighter line here near the eyelid. Make that a little bit broader here. We can also go in here with the brown, so use 283, the burnt sienna bit, and go over this part. Okay, let's use the black again and draw here. Oh, so make that tip here above a little bit sharper. Go around here with black and darken some sections down once more. Okay. And then let's draw these little eyelashes here over the highlight. So let's use a sharp black pastel pencil, and then start here above over the highlight here with start here above and draw with very light pressure very fine thin lashes here downwards. The key is really to use less pressure and perhaps move the pencil quickly and draw these fine eyelashes here downwards. If you want that they are thicker at the beginning, use a little bit more pressure and then reduce the pressure. So add these shadows of the eyelashes over the highlight. So we need these shadows here to make it really realistic. Let these shadows here cross the highlight. Here we can also bring in with the black some details, mapping in here also little small things, and draw over the edges of the highlight with the black. So create here sharp edges, and also go over the eyelids here once more with the black and create here a bit contrast. Here in the inner eye corner I also map in a bit of the black pigment. Okay, then let's use a paper stamp and blend that a bit. Great, then next I would say we draw the fur here, the brown darker fur around the blue dog eye. Drawing fur is really fun, and this pastel matte paper allows lots of layers, and you can draw lots of layers over the other. Most times I start with a mid-tone, so not a too dark color and not a too light color. Let's start here for the brown fur around the eye with a middle brown, 283, the burnt sienna. And then plot in here a first base layer with the burnt sienna. Everywhere where it is a bit brown here around the dog eye, let's plot in here the middle brown. Here you can move the pencil upwards and downwards, and yes, apply a first layer with the brown. Also here above, let's go over this part here with the brown. Just go over this black hairs we have sketched in our first drawing the outline here too. Then go over with the finger and blend the first layer. When the area is bigger, I prefer to use the finger for the blending. And if needed, you can go over it again with a second layer. So when you have too much paper color shining through, if there is lots of paper visible and it looks a little bit gritty, then you can add, of course, a second layer. The better always is to add more layers and blend them than to press a lot and add a lot of pigment, to avoid that the paper is saturated too early. Let's do the same here below the eye too. Let's plot in here the first layer with the brown. If you think you cannot draw as realistic as I do, if you have doubts that you can do that, if you see a lot of these beautiful, amazing animal portraits online, if you have the wish to draw such animal portraits too, so it might be that you doubt yourself, or that you think at the moment, how should I be able to draw such portraits? That's not possible. So I can promise you, you can do that too. I made the experience that clients in my drawing courses started with zero previous knowledge. They started really from scratch. They were overwhelmed by all the free lessons that were available, the free tutorials. They wanted a straight path to follow, step-by-step instructions, and they could draw. They really were surprised what beautiful results they could achieve. In my opinion, everyone can draw if she or he would like to, if she's motivated to do that, and yes, and I can tell you, you can do that too. You will be able. So here we are plotting in the brown then, and then go over with the finger. And then blend this first layer, and so we have an underpainting of the burnt sienna. And then let's go in with a darker color. I always go in then with a darker color and add a layer with darker color. So let's draw these shadow parts between. So this between the hairs, here are black darker areas, and draw them with black. Bring in here black strokes above the eye and vary the pressure here a bit. So some of these lines are darker and thicker. So then you can use a little bit more pressure. And when you want to create these fine hairs here above, then use very low pressure. Turn your pencil around a bit and let them cross, let them overlap. Draw them here in a little curve to the left. And here near the eye, where the eyebrows here grow out, draw the black parts here with more pressure. Create broader lines here. Here the fur is a little bit thicker, not so fine. There you can go in with more pressure. Then let's draw here to the left side and add everywhere here the thicker lines. The same here downwards. Bring in some shadow parts between our brown, orange brown fur then. And also start always here in the black part on the left side and draw the black lines here out to the left side. Let them overlap, let them cross. And here to bring fine lines to the left side, let them overlap. Then let's add more of the black lines here on the right side. Start near the eye. Here near the eye we can map in more black. Here it can be darker. Let's plot in here more black, darken down that part here. And then let the black hairs here go out and upwards. Here we can draw finer black lines. Rotate the pencil while you are drawing these lines. And so let's go around the whole eye here and add these black shadow parts or black, the deep black parts of the fur. Black hairs are here too. So draw them between the overlapping fur. Then here we have deeper shadow parts, so let's create contrast, and then let's add these fine lines below the eye too. You can move the pencil quicker and create fine thin lines by moving the pencil in a quick motion here downwards. Let them cross a bit. Always draw fur that you let cross the lines. Don't draw line by line. Let them cross. Let them go a bit in different directions when you want to create a realistic look. So let them overlap. Draw one hair over the other. Let them. Some are going to the right. Some are going to the left. So always keep that in mind. Don't draw line by line, very straight. Move them, so let them move to the right, to the left, change direction, let them overlap. That's really important. Also vary the lengths. Some are longer, some are not so long. Okay, here below the eye there we have a little bit of a skin. So the eyelid is here, we have here skin structure. So I move the black pencil here over this part in so little circles. Go over here in so little circles and darken that part down here a bit. The same here on the right side above. And then let's bring in this skin structure here. Let's choose cinnamon 189 and let's draw here so little dots on that part. So we see here these cells of the skin. Draw some dots here on this part with the cinnamon, bringing in some dots. You can also go then between once more with black. I use the charcoal, so it should be sharp. It should have a really sharp point. So go in with a very sharp point and bring in here some black details between these little dots, so that we have here contrast and depth. So with black you can darken down that part here. Also I draw over the eyelid with black here once more to increase here the depth a bit, and then go over with a lighter color. Then use a sharp white and bring in so little dots and little skin cells with white, so little highlights, bringing in some white dots here on that part here. We can also brighten up this part with white a bit, so when you have the white in your hand, you can also brighten up some parts around a bit. Okay, then let's work on the fur around the eye again. So let's choose then another color. This fur is really orangey, so I would say let's choose Sanguine 188 and start here above and bring in with this orangey brown here some eyebrows. Draw here long lines, the eyebrows here with longer lines, bring them here in, draw some longer lines that are overlapping here, the black part, and so here they going to the left side, draw them here between the black shadow parts we have drawn before. So bring the orangey brown lines here, the sanguine lines here between. This color is called in the pit from Faber-Castell sanguine. Have a look how such a orange brown is called in your pastel pencil set. Every brand has other colors in their assortment, in their range, so have a look how they are called. You can of course use other pastel pencils too. The pits are just my favorite ones. So draw these lines here, these brown, orangey brown hairs here between the black lines, hairs we have created before. Also let some of them overlap the others again, so always let them cross. And so we build up the layer of this fur. The same here on the left side. Draw with the sanguine here lines over our brown base layer. Here we will then work with some light flesh color, I would say. Let's concentrate on the sanguine here around the eye. And the more we come to the edges, the fur is more skin colored. Here below we can add sanguine hairs, but not so thick ones. Here they should be finer. Here you can rotate the pencil while you are drawing, and a tip is use less pressure. So always add several layers with less pressure to avoid that the paper is saturated too early, and then you can draw fine thin lines without smearing and smudging a long time, and layer different fur layers over each other. Okay, then I would say let's go once more between with the black. So use the black once more and add more black parts here between, some broader ones and some not so thick ones. Some should be very fine, so draw some fine lines here upwards. Let them cross a bit, let them overlap, and some then are broader, and let them cross here too. Draw over the part you have created before. You can always correct something. You can always go over it and blend with the pencil the layers. So blend brown and black together. Push the pigments into the paper. Here we can add a broader black part here where the eyebrows are going then to the left side. Bringing in some broader parts here. And here too between the hairs, let's add here shadow between the eyebrow hairs here. Bringing in another layer of the black. And here below too, draw the black lines starting here at this darker eye corner and draw the black hairs here over the brown. The same here below, darken that part down and add here fine black lines. Draw them downwards. Let them always a bit cross. Draw them between the very fine, thin, sanguine lines here. Okay, here above we can add more of the black. So always have a look, where can we add something? How is the feeling? Should I add here and there more black here above on the left side? It could be a bit darker. And then push the pigments into the paper. We can also use the blending stamp, the paper stamp a bit, and go over these parts and blend the layer a bit very carefully. But if some parts are a bit gritty, you can smooth them down and blend some lines together. Remove grit and remove a bit of the paper color when you can see that it. Go over gently and blend hairlines where the hairs are growing out. Make them a bit darker there. Okay, then let's work with cinnamon. So our 189 a bit, and add here above some cinnamon lines, so some flesh-colored, orangey pink colored lines. So add them here, some over the brown fur, and some are then going here towards our lighter fur around. And here too, add fine cinnamon lines. Let them go cross and draw them here upwards. Let them cross a bit, overlap a bit. The same on the left side here, bringing in some orangey pink, so orangey flesh colored hairs here. Also over the eyebrows we can add some highlights here. Some here downwards too, some longer ones. Let them cross, let them make a little curve or draw so a little wavy hairs here. The dog has here on the left side a longer fur. And here below we can also add with the cinnamon so little highlights, little light reflections on the brown fur, bringing in so very fine thin lines here in the eye corner too. Here then we have the overlapping hairs starting from the right, and they are then overlapping here the left part and the eye. Okay, the next step is that we will do here above the underpainting, and then that we can create here the transitions between the brown fur here and the lighter fur above. So I would say we use here the light flesh 132 and map that in here as a base layer. So map in a layer of light flesh. Don't use too much pressure. You can use a bit more pressure for the first base layer, but be careful when you work with softer pastel pencils, for example with the Carbucellos or with Derwent pastel pencils or softer pastel pencils, because then you have applied quicker lots of pastel pigment. With the pit you have the possibility to use a bit more pressure, but when you work with softer pastel pencils or for example with pastel sticks, they are softer and the color abrasion is higher, and then you have lots of pigment on your paper, and yes, it can be that it's saturated then earlier and your pencil strokes start to smear. So also when you create this base layer here, start here above and bring some lines between the brown fur here around. So always draw some lines here between, so that we have then this transition, so that we don't have here a framing line, a straight framing line. Start even in the base layer here with this transitions and blend it with the finger, and then I would say use ivory. It's here 105 from the Pastels. The number of the bit ivory is 103. It's such a yellowish cream. So plot in here at the edges here in the upper corner a bit of the ivory color, bring that in here. And also here on the left side, I would say, let's map in here ivory as a base layer. Just plotting in here a rough first layer. We can always go over it then with white and add white hairs, but here I would say the ivory is a great color here for our first base layer. Draw it here over the light flash a bit. Let's mix these colors together. And then let's blend it here, pushing the pigments into the paper, mixing colors and layers, pushing the pigments into the paper, going over it here with the finger, and then I use a paper stamp too and start blending here in the darker fur, and then I start blending with the paper stamp, so in fur direction, so that we also create a bit of fur structure with the blending stamp while we are blending and creating these transitions here. You can blend in fur direction, then go over here and try to remove a bit of the pastel pigments so that we really can have a very well blended base layer and our colors don't start to smear and smudge then, because I have used here the Carpotello ivory, and it can happen that the paper is saturated earlier. So I remove a bit of the pigment with the paper stamp here. Okay, and then let's start building up layers. Yes, so let's use a white, 101 the white, and let's add here some white lines starting here above. And add a lighter layer here, so let them overlap and cross. Draw some one to the left side and some a bit more upwards, and let them make a curve here to the left. So draw white lines over it, let them cross and overlap. So as we did the base layer in ivory and light flesh, you have here already a bit of contrast in the lighter fur. So bring in the white lines now. We can then darken them down once more and add another layer of white hairs. So that's really the fascinating things when you're working with pastels, that you can draw with light over dark easily. If the paper is not saturated, and it's really possible to create these layers in an easy way. The important thing is only that the paper is not saturated. Let them cross and overlap, so these are going here a bit to the left side. Let them go here curvy to the left. Let them overlap here too. Make a curve, let them cross, let them overlap. So play a little bit around and add lots of these lines. Let them go here between the darker fur here. We have here to create these transitions and also push the pigments into the paper. Okay, here on the right side too, let's add here with white lighter hairs, draw them here upwards, a little bit to the right side and then upwards. Let's bring in a bit of the first structure. And then swipe over with the finger gently And then I would also use the ivory color and bring in here strokes with ivory. So let's bring in different colors in that fur here, in that flesh colored ivory, light cream fur. Bringing in here ivory strokes. You can let them overlap, let them cross, so build up depth in the fur. Here in the middle between the eyes of the dog here, we can add lines, strokes that are going upwards. So they are not going to the side, they go upwards. Draw them here in the middle a bit. And then what I would do is to work with gray a bit, 273, and bringing in some gray lines here between. So let's add a bit contrast, a bit depth, and let's draw in here with gray a bit of the shadow parts between the lighter hairs. So here I won't work with black. For sure, it would be too dark for shadow parts, but we can go in with gray here to add a bit of depth. Draw with the warm gray 4, some fine lines here between, also here above, towards the left side a bit. Here we are drawing some gray lines between, and here too. Again with low pressure, just bringing in here a bit of the gray color, always in these spaces between the lines, between the white lines, and blend that a bit. Let it cross a bit. Let them overlap too, and add these gray lines between our lighter ones. And then I would say let's use the burnt ochre 187 and go over this part here on the right side gently and color this part of the fur a bit with burnt ochre. So you can also add a layer over a total area here of the animal and color that a bit. Color that a bit orangey. That's great. Here when you work with pastels too, you can color these lighter strokes that you have drawn here before on that pastel mat paper with another color, like this orangey ochre color here. And bring in here an orange touch. So go over it and color this part a bit. The same here. Let's draw here some orangey burnt ochre strokes upwards. Let them overlap here. This part of the face of the dog here. Let them overlap here and going upwards here. Bring in a bit of the orangey brown. Also let the strokes cross a bit. So bringing in here the orangey ochre color. Also here start over the darker section and add these strokes here. Draw them upwards. And on the left side too here bring in a bit of the burnt ochre to the left side, and here over our brown fur here on the left side of the eye. We can add it to, here we have then to bring in more base layer that we can here draw these overlapping hairs. Then I would say work a bit with the middle brown, our 283, the burnt sienna, starting in the dark area here and drawing some longer brown hairs upwards. So let's bring in here depth. Let's overlap lots of hairs here. Let them cross here and draw that upwards. Bringing in here some brown lines. layer more hairs over the layers before. So here you can play around a bit, always have a look to the reference photo, use the reference photo a bit as orientation. So here, let them here above cross a bit, and some longer hairs are coming together here with the tips, and some are going to the left, to the right side here, and then one more to the left. I'm going to sharpen the burnt sienna, so for fine hairs it works better when your pencil is sharp, has a sharp point. So now the pencil has a sharp point, so add here so long brown hairs that are crossing here to the more you draw here, the more dense this hair, this coat of the dog will be. So the fur around the eye, the more realistic your portrait will look. Push the pigment into the paper. Let's add some light flesh, 132 hairs, then let them here overlap, cross, some shorter ones, some are a bit longer. So here we can play around and layer lots of hairs over the others. So let them cross here. Here they should be a little bit thinner when they come to the eye, or here where they grow out. Then use very less pressure. Add here and there some darker lines. So here between, bring in the depth, bring in the dark spaces between the brighter hairs. And here some very small short ones, and then let's also add some longer ones. Drawing over this dark part here with the black, darken that down a bit. Going over this part here once more with the black, adding more black details here. Okay, then I would say let's also do here the base layer on the left side here. Let's use here, I would say, the ivory, 105 from the Carbutellos or 103 from the Pits, and just map in here a bit of the ivory. Let's do here a base layer of ivory. Blend it with the finger, and here above too, just map in here a first rough layer. Also here a bit more to the left side, mapping in here ivory and blend it with the finger. And then let's also do here the background on the left side, so that we can draw all these overlapping hairs. I would say choose warm gray 4, 273 here, and plot that in here in the upper corner. So use 273 here, the warm gray 4, and plot that in here for the background. So go over with that warm gray, with that middle gray here, and plot that in here. You need a little bit more pressure, or go over it for several times. And then map that in with the finger. Blend it well. If there is some paper color visible, go over once more with the gray. Go over here and add another layer with the gray, with the base layer color here, if you have gray, or if you use another color. And then let's use here some oranges. I think this is a part of the back of the dog, so that's very blurry. So let's plot in here a bit of the sanguine 188 and blend this with the finger. Then add 187, our burnt ochre 2 here a bit. Going over here in little circles. You really can mix and blend pastel pigments very well. So go over it and then blend it with the finger, or use a cotton swab for blending, or a paper stamp. So cotton swabs are also great tools to blend layers together, or use just the finger. If you don't like the dust on your finger, you can wear gloves or use a paper tissue, for example. Yes, and here below then let's plot in black a bit here. So draw this background here below black. Just map in a rough layer of black and then go over with the finger and blend it. So blend it here. Then use a paper stamp and create these mixed smooth transitions here. Mix the orangey brown with the black. I go over here in so little circles. Also bring in a bit of the black color into this part of the fur of the face here. Bringing in here a bit of black upwards and then blend and mix again these layers. We can also plot in a bit of the light flesh color 132 here above. Here it's lighter. Let's bring in here a layer of light flesh. I apply that light flesh pastel pigment in circles and then go over it with the finger in circles and blend and mix these layers here together. Okay, let's add another layer with light flesh. Perhaps go over it with the ivory a bit, 103 or 105 of the Carbotellos, and plot in, mix in here a bit of the ivory. Okay, so then yes, let's go over this part here below once more with the ivory, with the cream, and also here. Then add a bit of black here below, so draw so little black lines upwards between this clump of hair here. Draw it here upwards a bit and blend it over the edge here, over the corner, this lower corner here on the left side. Okay, then also let's use 283 and go over this part here, bring in more brown here below, creating here a base layer with the middle brown, bringing in the pigment and then blend it, go over it here, go over it in little circles. Okay, and then we can continue build up the fur here. So let's use first the 132, the light flesh, and let's start here and add light flesh hairs here overlapping the background, starting here on the face, on the head, and then let's add here light flesh colored hairs. Draw them over the background to the left side. Use here low pressure to create fine and thin ones. Let them here go to the left side. Let them here overlap the black part too. So we see here so loose hairs going to the left side. So let's draw someone the same here below that clump of hair here. Let's do some first layers with the light flesh, and then I would say let's use the white a bit and add these layers with white. Go over it here and add these white hairs with very low pressure. Let them here cross and let them go here downwards to the left side. Draw hair by hair, let them cross and go downwards. Here then really, here this dog has some wavy lines, so you can draw so little waves here downwards. So curly hairs a bit. So let's add here white hairs to the left side. Also some white that are overlapping here the background a bit. And some are going a bit to the right side here below. So let the white hairs overlap. And here we have such a little clump that is going to the left. Here we add two white lines going here to the left side. Build up the first structure of that clump here. And here what's always important is that you also bring lighter hairs into the darker sections here, so that you let them overlap. And here above too, I would say start on the left side here and bring in so hairs here towards, so downwards towards the eye and between the brown part here. Bring them in here. So to start drawing above and then add the white hairs here. Let them go downwards between our darker hair fur parts here. Okay, then let's add here more, draw more white hairs to the left side. Let them overlap here leftwards. Bring in some more of these wild, loose, crossing, flying hairs. Some are going a bit upwards. Move the pencil with very low pressure. Move the pencil upwards a bit. Let the hairs cross. Push the pigments into the paper. If you want to achieve more brilliant lines, then press the pencil a little bit more. And if you want to achieve very fine, fluffy hairs, then use the less pressure. So here we can bring in some hairs downwards here, let them cross. But we also have to add some details, some contrast. So use the gray and add here some gray hairs between, also here on the left side. Draw some gray lines between. Whoops, bring in a bit contrast. Turn the pencil a bit, rotate the pencil, then let's draw that here. Bringing in here darker hairs here below too, in that bunch of hair here, and here above too. Let them overlap a bit. Then use the black once more and add some black hairs here that are overlapping. The same here, so play a little bit around. Some fine black hairs can overlap the lighter part here too. Use very low pressure and draw some of these darker black hairs here below. Let them make a curve here to the right side. Okay, and so you can build up layer by layer this fur. Here I would also add more of the black. Okay, another tool what's really useful is this a craft knife. So use a normal crafting knife and scratch in details into your portrait. So you can scratch in brown lines when you'll use a brown paper, or scratch in gray lines. So just remove a little bit of the pastel pigment you have applied before. So here you see it works really well to scratch in so little details here, to scratch in little hairs and blow away the pastel pigment. So it's a great tool to just scratch in or remove a little bit of the pigment on the paper, and just scratch in here some details, some detailed lines, very fine lines. Go over this part and scratch in a bit here. Scratching in here some details. Here it works really well when you scratch upwards, and here you can see scratch in these fine lines here. Also here below the eye it works really well. Or here bringing in some fine strokes, fine lines here. Let's scratch in and refine the whole fur structure here a bit with the knife. Okay. Yes, so then work a bit with the white again. So I'm going to sharpen the white. The point should be really sharp. So with the sharp point, I would say let's go again over the white fur. Let's add another light layer and add more of these fine fluffy hairs. And here play a little bit around and add some fine loose hairs. Try to experiment a bit with pressure. Here when you press the pencil a bit more, you can create such brilliant white lines. So use a little bit more pressure and you can draw really so beautiful bright white hairs. Here draw them a bit curvy too. Let them here come together to a clump, to a white clump. So use a bit more pressure, just a bit, and you can create here really white, brilliant white hairs that are a little bit lighter than the underpainting, and it gives us contrast. So it adds contrast to the portrait. The same here, bringing in some more white lines here above. Some that are here going upwards and crossing a bit. So here you can really draw hair by hair. Here, draw some upwards, let them cross, let them overlap. Use a bit more pressure for brighter, brilliant ones, and then low pressure for the thinner lines and that are not so bright and brilliant. Here, for example, we need thinner white lines. Just brighten up the colors below a bit. Here we can really use very low pressure. Rotate the pencil a bit and create this fine thin lines here. Or here too, here we can use very low pressure and add so overlapping fine thin hairs here below on the left side. Let them overlap here, going over very gently. Okay, then let's add here above another layer with white. So take your time. So patience, persistence, and practice are really the keys, the most important keys if you would like to draw realistic animal portraits. So be patient and practice a lot, and hurry. You can draw at your own pace. I always say that to my students in Animal Art Club, my drawing academy, where I teach my members how to draw these realistic animal portraits, that they should work at their own pace. So I always say that your journey is your journey. Everyone is on his or her own part of the animal art journey. So I think nobody should compare himself with others. So when you will walk forward, move forward at your own pace, and nobody is the same. Everyone is different. And so I always say, just concentrate on yourself. How do you feel confident? Are you a beginner? Are you intermediate? Or are you an advanced artist? So you should draw in that stage where you feel confident, comfortable, and yes, how you have fun and enjoy it. So don't hurry or draw with pressure, for example, because you admire other artists and would like to achieve that too. So the most important thing really is practice and patience, and of course persistence too, and continue drawing and repeat some steps, and sometimes go back some steps, and then you move forward, and you will move forward further and a bigger part of your way, I would say. And yes, so be patient and add lots of fine white hairs here. In my opinion, you can do that, even if you now think you will never be able to do that. You will. Lots of my students really didn't think about it, that they can create that, and then afterwards they were so happy what they had achieved in that period of time, or after 1-2 drawing tutorials. I always explain you step by step how I do that, and when I can do that, you can do that too. I'm very curious about your blue dog eyes then afterwards. I hope you show me your results then. I'm looking forward to see them. So add lots of white hairs here. So on this part here below, and let them cross, let them overlap, let them here crossing, overlapping. Some are longer again, so here we need some longer hairs that are overlapping the shorter ones. And then we have shorter ones too. Here the knife could also be a great choice, and just scratch in some darker parts here, scratch them in, going over this part here, adding fine thin lines with the craft knife here too. Okay, then let's continue working here below on this part, below the blue eye. Here we can use black once more and add longer black fur here. So draw longer lines, let them cross, let them here overlap a bit, and draw these longer, darker parts here. Draw them here downwards. Let these hairs cross. Let them here overlap. So draw long lines, long black lines. Here these bunches of hair are coming together to here, and here they are going to the left a bit. Again, I would recommend to use here low pressure, and yes, and scratch the pencil over the paper and draw a line here, line by line to the left side. Draw many of these lines over the same part. Go over it with the paper stamp gently, just to smooth them down a bit and remove this little grit. Sometimes it can happen that your lines, white or black lines, have so little dots, white dots on it or black dots. So interruptions in the line. So then go over it very gently with a paper stamp or a cotton swab and remove that little lines. Then it's smooth again. Okay, then let's use 187, the burnt ochre, and add here below fine, thin burnt ochre hairs. So use low pressure again. Hardly touch the paper and scratch over the surface with the tip of the pencil. Rotate the pencil, turn it while you are drawing, and yes, create with the tip of the pencil these fine hairs. We can draw some longer ones here. Let them come together. Let them overlap so one hair is going over the other. Let them cross and then go here downwards. And let's add some shorter ones too and some longer ones. And here let them overlap. Let's bring in some darker brown, orangey brown hairs too with 188, the sanguine. So these are more orange colored, so not so yellowish like the burnt ochre. It's more going into orange, a mixture between burnt sienna, I would say, and orange. And also bring some of these here to the left side. Move the pencil in little curves. Really do that with very low pressure. And here we can draw some ones to the right side too and let them here overlap. Draw them here downwards and let them come here together to a little bunch here. And then let's add lighter ones with light flesh, 132, the light flesh. So bring in here some lighter hairs with light flesh. I'm going to sharpen it. It should be a bit more sharp. So with the sharp light flesh, let's go over this brown fur here below and let's add here highlights. Let's add here with the light flesh some skin colored strokes. Let them go, let them overlap here. Bringing in here some lighter highlights. Here these are going to the left, so I also bring in here very fine thin strokes that are going here to the left side. Draw line over line. Let them cross again and overlap. So with a very sharp point you can really create here beautiful fine lines. And I have here the hand in the air, so move the pencil upwards and downwards and use very low pressure. Okay, here we can also add some of these light flesh hairs, and here we can let them overlap. Draw them here over the brown a bit. Then let's use a sharp white and add white hairs. This dog has here some very white hairs, so draw them really with white. Here this one is going to the left side, so really draw here each single hair. So draw here hair by hair, some white hairs. Also here above we can add some white hairs. Here too, let some white hairs here overlap. Draw some upwards, push the pigments into the paper. Some are also overlapping here, the eye. Draw some over the eye, that creates a 3D effect. And the same here on the left side, add some of them, and then here let some white hairs or beige hairs here overlap. Draw them here over the brown, let them cross. And also here we need then more of them here to the left side. Draw the pencil in so curves here, the hairs are coming together to a clump. So draw that, let some go over the background. And here add more of these white hairs with low pressure, bring them here in. So let them overlap too and cross. I use very low pressure here too. Just hold the pencil with very low force here, and then scratch here over the paper, and you can create very, very fine, thin, loose hairs here above the same. Play a little bit around here. We can add some longer ones overlapping here. So let's refine here the whole fur. Here we can draw with a bit more pressure some white hairs that are also going upwards here. And then here some more to the right side. These can be a bit shorter and overlap here the fur on the right. Let them cross here again, draw some longer ones, and then again some shorter ones here. Here we have a longer hairs, longer fur, so draw here longer hairs upwards, let them cross and go so upwards, and some towards the eye here, starting here on the right side. These one are going upwards too here, and then blend them with the paper stamp a bit so that the white lines don't look gritty. And go over with 132 the light flash. Go in here between the white lines and also draw over them a bit. Mix these layers here a bit. What we then will do, let's also bring in here over this part here. It's a part of the snout, I would say. So bring in here a bit of the light flash that we have already, and map in here a light flash base layer, underpainting here our first layer, and push the pigments into the paper here with the finger. And you can also take your paper stamp and use it here for blending. Blend here in fur direction from the left to the right side, and here starting here above and then downwards. Blend this first layer so that's not gritty, and then choose a dark color, so choose black. Here we have black areas between those little strands of hairs here, so draw these little black shadow parts in. Here use a bit more pressure, that's really dark, and go over with a paper stamp and blend these darker sections here. Going over a bit with the finger, and then work here with burnt sienna 283 and add here so lines starting here on the right side, and draw the lines towards the left side, so leftwards, and And yes, work with low pressure, just scratch in here these brown lines here and create here a bit of the fur structure, bringing in here lines starting here below and add here brown lines going, drawing them upwards, let them cross here. Yes, and so you add here more of the brown lines. If you're curious about how I started drawing, first I made experience with graphite pencil and charcoal. So I tried drawing animals in black and white, but then it was not a long time and I discovered these beautiful, amazing animal portraits. I found them on the internet and I developed that big wish to be able to draw such portraits too. I was always very creative. Art lessons were my favorite in school. Once the mother of my friend in school time asked me if I won't do arts for a profession, so to make money with it, because I have drawn many animal portraits in my school time and they were already realistic. But it never came to my mind. I always heard you cannot make a living from it and it's not possible to do art as a profession. So I went to a higher school, to a college, and came away from drawing. And after school then I began working in an office and I didn't think about drawing anymore. But later then, yes, then I saw these fascinating animal portraits and I wanted to draw them too. I practiced a lot and searched a lot in the internet. That was really, it took me a very, very long time and I didn't know exactly where to start. So I tried out everything and over the years I developed my own style, but sometimes I really had to wish to have tuition, take lessons, but I didn't found any. And so last year I had the idea to give art lessons for people that are like me and that would like to follow a step-by-step process and come to their goals quicker or more easier without frustration and guided, and where they can ask any question they have and draw with like-minded people and so on. And I developed my membership Animal Art Club. I had my founding member lounge last year and yes, it started and it's running now and I'm so proud about it. So, and I also offer drawing courses for people that want to move forward in a short period of time. So here we have now added lots of brown layers with very low pressure, just scratched over the surface to create that thin layers, and then use ivory. So use the ivory color 103 from the Pitt or 105 from the Carputellos, and go over it here with ivory and add with very quick motion, so thin ivory cream lines. So go over that part here and let's try to draw in here with ivory these lighter fur here. Here then the hairs are going upwards, so I move the pencil quicker here and create here these ivory colored thin lines. So with the sharper point it's easier, of course. I had to sharpen this ivory pencil And then, yes, add lots of layers, draw over the same place here for several times, and add lots of fine layers with the ivory. Here we can draw these hairs then upwards, let them here overlap. Drawing realistic animal portraits, it's really fun, and working with pastel pencils is really fun. I really enjoyed it. I fall in love with them when I discovered them, and yes, it didn't last long, and they were my favorite medium. So it's really fun, and you can create such beautiful artwork with pastel pencils. It's, I would say, a quicker medium in comparison with colored pencils. You can mix them very well and add lots of layers here on pastel matte paper. Really important is to use the right paper, so don't save the money here. I encourage you to invest in good quality paper, because you will save lots of nerves and frustration afterwards, and you will have more fun, and you will enjoy it more drawing on it, and your results will be really more successful, and you will be more satisfied then afterwards. So they cost a little bit, but these costs are definitely worth it. It's a totally different experience to work on pastel matte than on other pastel papers. Another paper that I can recommend is Sennelier Pastel Card. It's also a great pastel paper. It's a bit more like a sandpaper. It works well to add all the layers. So here, draw these ivory hairs here upwards a bit. Let them cross, draw them towards the eye a bit, and let them here cross. Okay, then let's use the white once more. So let's add more white highlights. I'm going to sharpen it. So, and add more white hairs, let them here overlap. Draw so fine, loose hairs with low pressure again. Turn the pencil while you create these fine overlapping hairs. So we are really going to refine that drawing now. Finally, I always go over the whole drawing and add so fine details here and there, everywhere where they are needed. So go over this fur here with the white and add lots of fine white strokes here over these strands here. Let also cross some hairs here. Some are going upwards over the brown fur, and here too let some whiter hairs here overlap. Push the pigment into the paper. Drawing them here, draw someone upwards here. Very fine and thin ones. Some are going here to the left side too. Yes, and here let's add some more highlights, white hairs, draw them here upwards. Here above we need some white details too. So go once more over the whole fur and add these details. Here on the left side I add some ones. So play around a bit. Where can we work with white? Where can we brighten up some parts? So finally, it really is important to be a bit patient. And these final steps can also be a part of calming down, and the whole drawing process can be relaxing. So if you had a busy day and you will need an activity to calm down, drawing is perfect. It's really a sort of meditation. You can listen to music or listen to a TV series or hear a podcast or only calm. Just listen to calm music and relax, and can really be great as a therapy too. So take your time here finally and just add here and there some hairs. So don't think a lot about it. Sometimes some intuition or feelings can also create beautiful artwork. So don't think a lot about it. Just add here and there some highlights. I always compare with the reference photo. I have it here below or on the screen, on the computer screen too. Have a compare and then I add here the details. Every artwork is different and every artwork is unique, and you never can copy a photo exactly. It's not the goal. Just bring in your own style too in your artwork. That's the important thing. Okay, and then let's use the brown once more, 283. And let's also add some brown details then. So bring in here with the burnt sienna. So fine hairs that are overlapping. Move the pencil to the left side with a quick motion in a curve here to draw some of these overlapping hairs. It's like drawing whiskers. Draw with a very low hand, so draw with very low pressure and bring in here with quick motion and a very light hand these fine thin lines that are here overlapping, going to the left side, bringing in so darker hairs that are crossing. We can also bring in here some darker details between, so darken down parts between these bunches of hair here, or bringing in some darker hairs here upwards, let them cross. Okay, also here on that side we can add here brown hairs that are here going downwards. Use low pressure and draw so little wavy curvy lines. You can bring them in here and let them here go over the lighter fur. Some darker hairs we can also draw here below. Play a little bit around, use less pressure. Bringing in here so fine thin brown strokes. The same you can do with the burnt ochre 187. Bring also in so burnt ochre, orangey lines, orangey hairs here. Color down some sections a bit with the burnt ochre. Going over here. Also we can bring in here below a layer of burnt ochre. Bring in here a layer of the orangey color. Bringing in here a bit, and the same here, going over this left fur part, or add here on the brown part some orangey ochre lines, some thin ones that are going here to the left. Yes, and so you can play around a bit and add some details. This overlapping hair in the middle I won't draw. I leave that. I think that's doesn't look good on a portrait. What I do finally, what I most times do is go over the blackest parts once more with black. Draw over it and darken down the black sections. So really make sure that they are dark, that there is no pastel dust on them, so that we really have a beautiful contrast in there. Or add here and there some black lines too. Going over this part here below and add black hairs here too. And we can also add some black and blue details once more here on the eye. But I think there are enough details in there. I think it looks good so far. Yes, so you can play around or use the craft knife a bit and scratch in some details finally. Like here. Here we can scratch in fine lines. That works really well. Like you can see here. Just refine that and bring in here a bit of the first structure. Refine the first structure. The same is here on the left side of on that strand. Here you can scratch in so darker details. Just bring in here a bit of contrast here above too. But I think that looks great so far. Perhaps let's choose once more a sharp white and go over it one round with white and add again some more white details. If you have the motivation for that, do that. So when it comes to the question, when is my portrait, my drawing finished? Yes, it's totally up to you how long you have motivation, how long you're motivated, and the important thing is don't overwork it and don't get frustrated. Draw as long you have fun and it looks good for you. Perhaps you go sometimes some steps back and watch it from a distance. If you are not sure if you should add more details or more things, but overworking is not good, but also it needs some layers and also final details to achieve this realistic look. So draw until you're really satisfied. Here I add some white hairs here, to shorter white hairs here, some highlights, and some are here overlapping. So I add some more of these fine fluffy hairs here that are here crossing and overlapping, and add here some white ones too once more. Some going downwards and let them cross and here overlap a bit once more. So go over here with low pressure once more and just add again some white hairs here. I just want to add some more to create a bit depth and to refine the portrait. Yes, so it's really fun to play around a bit and add some details. You can go over the highlight with the white finally too and add here a dot for the sun, for example, and go over the iris once more with a bit white and brighten that eyeball up, bringing in some highlights once more. Okay, so yes, great. Here we are, perhaps a white hair once more. Yes, but now I think so. Just blend that here a bit once more. But now I think this beautiful blue dog eye is finished. What I do most times is sign it then, so add a signature. I use here the brown and add so my letters from my names as a short signature. You can also write your full name. Yes, great. So then this drawing of the dog eye, of this blue dog eye, is finished. And I hope you have enjoyed the drawing process. I hope you could follow my explanations and this lesson is helpful for you. And I really hope you have enjoyed the mini course here. You have drawn your beautiful blue dog eye, and yes, I hope you had fun and you are motivated to draw more.